right, Ton here, Dover Gun Exchange. Got a quick commentary on some AR barrels. There's a lot of choices out there in barrels. You can read reviews. Everybody's got an opinion. Inevitably, a lot of people go cheap on barrels. There's less expensive brands, Bear Creek, Palmetto, what have you. Interestingly, the same people will spend a lot of money on something like a handguard, which is really a roll cage for the gas system. It doesn't affect how it shoots at all, for the most part. Anyway, I have a couple examples here because people bring me guns to sort out quirks and make them shoot better, run better. Factory guns, custom guns, I take them all apart and do my thing, and they are always better. In this particular instance, the guy brought me an upper. These are all 6.5 Grendel barrels. The barrel in his upper was a Bear Creek Arsenal. Easily identified, honestly. I did my thing, polishing up feed ramps and polished the crown, chamfered the gas port. As I was polishing the crown, I caught a glimpse of the rifling. And that's what we're going to talk about, is the bore itself. It is terrible. It's terrible. So I started looking at a few other barrels. Another one I found that was not great, and this is one that I had actually not only cleaned up and did the feed ramps on and all that, I had cerakoted it. This was a 20-inch that was in Great Lakes Firearms. By the way, a lot of their stuff is okay, but you buy a Grendel, you're expecting to use it for longer range something usually. The other barrels I have are Faxon arms. I've got one from Anderson actually, and then I've got a 20-inch stainless match that came with a matched bolt from Brownell, one of their premium barrels. This is going to be tricky using the phone, so bear with me, but we're going to try. Okay, first barrel here is the one I started with, the Bear Creek Arsenal. Right away, you will notice just some terrible machining marks. This is the muzzle end. That's supposed to be the rifling in there. There is cross-directional tooling marks, plowing right through it all, rifling and everything. I was just trying to clean up the crown when I came upon this. I was trying to find a better angle, but it's not working. So, I mean, it's bad, like bad. So, how one ever expects that not to foul terribly and shoot. And even the lands, it's like, it's almost hard to decipher. It's really bad. I mean, the crown wasn't great, but this is really bad. So, that's the Bear Creek. Too bad. Feed ramp sure turned out pretty when I was done. Next one, also not great. This was the barrel from Great Lakes Firearms. I don't know who makes their barrels. They're a pretty decent value, usually, I think, in an AR. But again, if you're buying a 6.5 Grendel, you have a task in mind, usually longer range. Now, this is better than the Bear Creek. But still, if you look at the actual lands in the bore, you can see that shattering, cross-directional. I just don't know what these guys are thinking. How would you ever expect that to shoot good? Now the crown was more uniform on this one than the last one, but they're both bad. Unbelievable. Now, here's a good barrel. This is that 20-inch Brownells. Yeah, Brownell 6.5 Grendel, all right. Noticeably better. right? Not near the chatter marks. Much more concentric crown. Way nicer crown. Not perfect. This could be lapped and made probably into a hell of a shooter. Probably doesn't shoot terrible now, but a little bit of love, and I imagine she could really shoot. Surprising one to me. This is an Anderson barrel. Certainly nothing expensive. Sorry for the photography people. This is terrible. But brand new barrel. But check out the rifling. Now that is damn smooth. I mean, I've seen a little prettier crowns, but compared to what we've been seeing, this is Cadillac right here. Just saying. Anderson. Yeah. No kidding. Last one here I got is a Faxon. Now this is a 20-inch barrel. Just a gunner's series, not their match. I have shot this barrel. It's shot okay. Not great, but good. Plenty good for deer hunting, which is what I was using it for. The rifling is totally decent. None of that chatter mark like we had seen in the other barrels. Not beautiful, not polished, but could be lapped. And any tooling marks you do see are running pretty much linear with it. By the way, both of those first barrels had been shot too, so it's not like they weren't broken or something a little bit either. Not a perfect crown, which might explain why I couldn't get it quite to shoot as tight as I wanted. But it did shoot, yeah, I'd say minute of angle after I tried a couple loads. So, the shocker here being the Anderson. But man, it's amazing the price difference between those barrels. The best and the worst, $40. Those Bear Creek barrels, maybe $100, $120. Even that Brownell's with the fancy mashed bolt, it's only like $220. I mean, talk about places to spend your money and not to spend your money. Okay, so there's my bid on just a handful of barrels. They were all 6.5 Grendel. Shocking what a few dollars difference can make in a barrel, though. Kind of like military contracts and bridges, space shuttles. The lowest bidder is not always the answer. But throwing money at something, especially just brand name, is also not always the best idea. Here, for example, I was putting a buffer tube on a rifle today, carbine, and I opened up a Noveske buffer tube assembly. Came with their single point plate. Figured it's Noveske. I was doing a very cool little rifle build. Wouldn't hurt to spend a little extra money on it. I gave it the finger test. See how smooth it is, because ARs make that sound, rank, rank, rank. A lot of that has to do with the internal finish of your buffer tubes. The spring, the buffer itself. Okay. This thing was rough. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that? There's like machining rings all the way down once you get in there. It was terrible. I'll show a side by side in a minute. So for comparison, I grabbed a much less expensive Anderson, and one of my favorite go-tos, Bravo Company. Now the Bravo Company, I just know is good. I've done so many of them. They're always good. Their buffer's good. Their spring's good. I tend to still polish everybody's springs, but and the Bravo companies always have this really great, I don't know exactly Teflon something, gray coating on the inside that makes them extra lubricity, but they are always smooth, always smooth. I've never found a ripple or wrinkle, any tooling mark machining whatsoever. And the Anderson. No, I just opened the package. It's good. See all the way down. Way better than the Noveske. So here you have a part, Noveske, very expensive. Some of their stuff's fine, I'm sure, but a lot of it's just brand recognition. The bottom of the barrel is never good. But the top ain't always what it's cracked up to be. Like most things in life, I suppose the truth lies in the middle. I will do a side-by-side with these here just so you can see. I'll try to line it up with flashlight. I don't use cheap parts. Everything I use is American made. But I'm not just throwing money at stuff. Sometimes a $900 barrel doesn't shoot that much better than a $400 barrel, which often doesn't shoot that much better than a $200 barrel. Okay, see if I can do this. Bear with me. Okay, so here we go, from left to right. First one, this is the Noveske. You can see machine marks down in there. What's going to happen when your buffer and spring rise by that? Next, Anderson. Not perfect, but way better. And a third the price. And cheaper and always awesome. Man, I love Bravo Company. Moral of the story, there's a lot of parts out there. Do your own research, whatever, believe me or not, these are my opinions. I'm not ripping on anybody, I'm just showing you what I find as I work with it. I'm gonna say names because it's the box I opened and they put the product out there. The next one might be better, who knows? But throwing money at stuff, especially big money like Noveske, terribly disappointed. I've run into other things from theirs that I thought were average. Some good design ideas maybe, but craftsmanship not there. I highly doubt that they make a lot of their own parts. And if they do, they should be ashamed. Anderson, boys down in Kentucky. Kudos. People give them a hard time, they're inexpensive. Man, I tell you, some of the tightest uppers I've run into are from Anderson. Anybody who's consistently better is Bravo Company. And most of their parts are pretty darn good. I don't really use many of their lowers, mostly because the lower has the brand and that kind of reads inexpensive. Anderson's like pit bulls. There's nothing wrong with the dog. It's the people who want to own them, usually, that are the problem. Bravo Company, a little spendy, always good. I've never run it, some of the stuff, I don't get why their bolt carrier group is necessarily $100 more than somebody else's or vice versa, but it's always good anyway. Another barrel that I didn't have in a Grendel here to include in the herd is a Ballistic Advantage. I'm going to give them props. I've put together a number of guns with their stuff and they shoot outstanding, especially for the money. Proof research, at first I wasn't terribly impressed. I actually had to send the barrel back. Did a 6mm arc for a gentleman, but the second barrel that they sent me put together, he is shooting inch groups at 250 yards, like half MOA, and it's just tickled. I'm doing 2 more uppers in 6mm arc, and I got proof barrels for both of them. But you know, it's $450 barrel. It ought to shoot. Of this batch here, though, man, those Andersons were good. That Brownells was good. Pretty disappointed in the Bear Creek. Not that I'm surprised. I've run into it with Palmetto also. Go cheap on something else. The critical components, gas blocks, buffer tubes. For the price difference between a good and a bad buffer tube is $30. A good and a bad gas block is $20. Don't go cheap there. Get a handguard that was only $150 instead of $200. It will make no difference. All right, that's my opinion.